Alright, good morning, people of YouTube. So, we just got back from the Peoria Regional. As you can see on the screen, I took New Maimon. I finished 14th place overall, securing my invite for Nationals. It was a great time, met a lot of really cool people at the event. All of my opponents were super cool. I met up with most of them continuously throughout the day to talk with them, see how their rounds were going. Ended up adding a lot of them as friends so that I can playtest with them later. And it was just overall a really fantastic experience. In-person regionals are really great. Bandai, please do more of them because that's how players like us make friends. But yeah, it was a really cool time. The deck did me really well. We'll talk a little bit about my choices at the end of the video because I'm sure a lot of people are tired of hearing about Nume. But my matchups were really cool. I played against 3 different Mirage players in a row in the middle of the tournament. Ended up beating all of them. My 2 losses for the day, I lost against Security Control pretty early on, and then I lost against the Mirror match in round 7. And the guy that won that matchup ended up placing 4th overall, so congrats to you on winning your Omnimon. You were a really cool opponent, and our game was super intense. And then, yeah, I played against Tyrant. I played against Green Rapid. Let's see. And Imperial in round 8. I believe that was all of my games. But yeah, no, my 2 losses were against Setcon and against the Mirror. And I had a lot of really cool games throughout the day and a lot of really good opponents. So there are a couple things that I do want to address with the community just to kind of get some clarification on it. I've heard a lot of people talking about the new rule as far as Bandai forcing players to play out the entire event, not until there's just one undefeated, and some of it is with a negative context. I, for one, think this is a fantastic thing, and I will give you my own personal anecdote from this regional as kind of a basis for my opinion. So going into what would be round 8, all of the undefeateds had been defeated at that point, so you could have just ended the tournament there with the old rules. However, you had so many X1s and so many X2s that it was really only going to come down to tiebreakers to determine who got serialized Omnimons and who got invites for Nationals, which I don't want these high-level prizes coming down to die rolls between who I played throughout the day, you know? I'd rather it come down to more of a contest of skill. I mean, it's a tournament. We're all there to compete anyway. So if you can play one extra round that I have decided to coin the bubble breaker, I hope that that word sticks in the community. But you have a bunch of people essentially playing on the bubble going into an 8th round, and if you win in this round, for me, for instance, there were so many X2s that going into round 8, if I won that round, I was guaranteed top 16, and if I lost that round, I was guaranteed to be in top 32. Tiebreakers wouldn't have meant anything. There was no, oh, I bubbled out of top whatever, because you had this bubble breaker round to pop those bubbles and make it so that players got more definitive results. I like this so much. I can't tell you how many tournaments I personally have gotten like 19th at, just coming short of top 16, or coming short of top whatever, to get whatever place I want. And it kind of sucks, and it really does kind of suck seeing a lot of people with the same record as you getting these higher prizes when you did just as well as them, and the only thing that made you not get them was kind of luck of the draw. And I get it, like, it's a card game. There is going to be inherent RNG anyway, but this is a controllable factor that we can mitigate just by having better planning. And I think the TOs are doing a better job of planning it, so why not let them mitigate, that variable that we don't necessarily need in our community. I've heard a lot of people talking about not liking essentially all tournaments being one round longer than they have to be. I, for one, am a huge advocate for keeping it this way. Bandai, if you're listening, that's my vote. I think it's a really good idea, and what you guys are doing as far as that goes is making it so that more consistently the better players are getting these better placings, which in a contest of skill is more healthy for the community. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on kind of that issue. My other 2 cents on the issue was I listed all the rounds that I played to you, right? Like, I played one mirror match all day. I see so many people calling Numemon a tier 0 deck, and I think a lot of people don't know what tier 0 means. Tier 0 means that you go to a tournament, and that's all you expect to see. In Yu-Gi-Oh, for instance, when we had tier 0 formats, think about when 6 Samurais were first introduced. You had an entire top 16 where there was one other person that was not playing 6 Samurai, and 15 of the 16 lists were top 6 or were 6 Sam. Tier 0 was like Airblade Turbo. When you had that YCS, the Weekend Elemental Hero Stratos came out, where literally every single deck was Airblade Turbo. It abused Stratos, it abused all these other cards to generate a shit ton of advantage. And literally every deck in top 32 was the same list card for card. That's tier 0. Teledad was tier 0 because you could either afford to play Teledad or you had to find a way to beat it. Even when Yu-Gi-Oh went to a like Necros format, when Necros were in their peak power, that wasn't tier 0. You had 50% of the community playing Necros and 50% playing decks that were not that. I would not call that a tier 0 format because you aren't having all of top represented by one deck. What Numemon has here is it has the highest conversion rate. So what that means is there were a lot of players at this regionals that I was entering playing like Magna and Rapid and Tyrant, but there weren't that many of those decks that got actually top placings. Comparatively, Numemon had about, I think, 30 to 40% of the entrants actually playing this deck, and it made up like 55% of top 16, which means that players are being rewarded for playing this deck well, which I don't think means that this deck is tier 0. I just think that means that good players are good and are being rewarded for piloting a good deck for as long as they have been. If you had a top 16, for instance, where Numemon took all 8 of the top 8 slots, and then the rest of top 16 was something else, I would maybe consider talking about this in a tier 0 sense, but it hasn't done that yet. And so I think a lot of players are quick to jump the gun and kind of assign labels where they aren't necessarily needed. Is this the best deck of the format? Yes. Does that make this a tier 1 deck? Also yes. Does that make this a tier 0 deck? No. You need to learn what tier 0 means. That being said, that's all like the extracurricular points that I have to kind of go over. Like I said, my rounds were really cool. I guess the last thing that I have to say about this event is just some of the interesting card choices that I did play. Like, interesting in the sense that it was Numemon and we've seen this all before. I did get a comment about this Dorimon egg. I think it triggers more often than Toko, and gaining memory is more often more valuable in a lot of matchups. The Tokomon is kind of better when you're playing against the mirror, seldomly. So, like, that is a point of contention, so this is just an interesting thing that you could consider playing. My Floodgate package, the Jakurimon never really came up throughout the entire event, but Shumon did so much. It shut down Imperial dead in their tracks. It made Mirage bounce this rather than my level 5 stacks. That way, whenever they did swing, then I could blast on top of my level 5. And the biggest thing about this deck is the level 5 and 6 package, right? So I did decide to cut down to 2 Platinum Numes, and this was a last-minute decision. This was actually specifically so that I could put the mat in. Fun fact, I had never actually played this card at all in this deck. Like, even resolved it once until this tournament. It was something that I put in, like, week of event, and it was the only real change that I made week of. But this card came in clutch so often throughout the tournament. This Matashita made it so that I had a lot of memories to do my plays in any situation. There were times that I needed to fully, like, slam one of these Numemon down and Digivolve an Edamon on top of it so that I would have Valk with blocker. And this card always ensured that I was able to do that with the promo Ukos and, like, the Satskis. There were times where my opponent was pushing advantage, and then with these cards, I was able to go up to, like, 6 or 7 memory and then just fully clap them back, which is kind of insane. And then, yeah, I'm playing a lot of Valk in exchange. Like, I'm only playing the 2 Platinums. I did go up to 2 Venus because I think this is necessary for your, like, Mirage matchup. This card kind of helps make the Imperial matchup even freer, and it's really good into the mirror. So I really value Venus. I wouldn't ever play a deck with less than 2, and I think that was the correct decision because there were multiple games that I did resolve double Venus, and it did win me the game. But Valk, like, in my Nume mirror, I was playing against a guy that he said he was sitting at table 1 basically all day. He's like, yeah, no, my day was really good, and then I went from table 1 to table 4, and this is the lowest I've sat all day. And I was like, Jesus Christ, man, that's a first world problem if I've ever heard of one. But I kept getting him with the Edda and Valk combo. Like, specifically one game I remember I played an Edamon super early because I knew that if I did that, then he would think that I wouldn't have it for the rest of the game. And then in the mid game, I Edda Valked him again, and then did a Valk the 3rd time in the late game. And he goes, Jesus Christ, how many of these cards are you playing? And I was like, I'll tell you afterwards, but you're not gonna like my answer. And my biggest change that I would have made for this deck going forward is I would have actually dropped the Death Exmon because this card hardly ever came up. And I would have bumped Edamon up to 4 copies because in that match that I lost against the Mirror, if I would have found this in our game 3, like, I was digging for it. He acknowledges that I literally looked through the top, like, 20 cards of my deck trying to find this piece, and I wasn't able to do it. And if I had, then I'm not saying I would have won, but I'm saying I would have been able to get out of the situation that I was in, and then the game 3 would have gone on a little longer. And, you know, it's a new May game 3, so everything flops back and forth momentum on, like, the drop of a dime. And, yeah, I just couldn't find a level 5. But every time that I saw the Edamon, it was really good. Every time I saw the Valk, it was really good. You can actually pitch the Edamon off of Garymon's effect, so it's never even dead in hand. If it is dead in hand, you can just discard it to draw more cards. It's really good, and yeah, other than that, the deck is pretty standard. Like, it's a Numemon list. It does Numemon things, and it's been working really well for me for the past couple months. So yeah, and that's all I have to say. I just heard a bunch of people talking about the community, and yeah, I wanted to bring my opinions to the matter, because I don't really feel like I do that enough, and I actually had some opinions on this one, because I was involved. So, yeah, that's all I have to say for this video. We'll see you all in the next one, and, again, shout out to everyone I met at the regional, because you were all super cool. But, see you all next time. Bye, everyone.